What about the destruction in Europe? Could you
Oh,
talk a little bit about that?
it was terrible. City at St. Lo, it was the first city that I saw when we landed on Omaha Beach, and it was just the whole city was just a mass. Most of the buildings seemed to be out of stone or brick, and they just crumbled. And I've got a picture I'll show you over here too. The bridges, when we crossed the Rhine, uh, they had you could see the spans. They looked like this, and we crossed. I drove the Jeep across the Rhine on a pontoon bridge that the engineers had put up next to the bridge. But there were some cities that weren't damaged. But the larger cities, like Aachen, for example, that was one of the largest cities that they took. It was just a mass of rubble also.
Did you have any interaction with the civilians in Germany or
Never,
any
no,
of the countries you were
no.
in?
I saw some that had been shot. That the bodies were still laying, like one in a barn, and you could see the bullet hole in his head. There was while we were at Liège, Belgium, there was another incident where we had our radio set up. They, I guess they found it because there was a German plane came over right over where we were. It didn't shoot at us, but it turned around and it went back, and then it started back the second time. And there was some anti-aircraft somewhere. I don't know where it was, but they shot it down, and it landed just about 100 yards from the building that we were in. And of course, it just blew up in flames. And we went out to see it, and I can still smell the body. There were two bodies in it. Of course, they were just laying there burning, but you couldn't get up close to it to do anything. They were dead. You couldn't get up close to it because the ammunition and burning was going off, and you could have been hit by that. So we had to wait until it quit burning, and then notified somebody to come and get the bodies.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And so you guys what were you doing in the barn when this plane came?
Just examining it for Germans. It was, I guess you'd say actually we were probably just more looking around to see what.
So you weren't set up there or anything?
Well, we were close to it. And but when I was off duty, we'd maybe go for a walk or something. It was safe enough for us to do that.
Wow. That's someone must have been looking out for you guys.
Yes.
And you didn't see the anti-aircraft gun anywhere?
No, we didn't. No, it more than likely was in the edge, and the plane only had to go about 11 miles to land where we were. Yeah. Then myself and 12 others and a lieutenant were sent on what we call we were deployed to, what is it if you're attached to another company? Detached service. We were sent on detached service, and we were sent to, we were supposed to go to Liège, Belgium, near Liège, Belgium, and set up our radio station. As we moved at night, and I was driving a Jeep, and behind me we had two other vehicles and our radio equipment. And this happened on September the 17th, on my birthday. As we were going down this road, after having traveled quite a while, I suddenly you're driving real slow because you're driving without lights, and we heard water, like rushing water, and we stopped the Jeep and everybody behind us, and got out and walked up the road, and found out that the bridge was out, and that would have dropped off right into the river. So we turned around and went back, and finally we ran into some Allied soldiers, and we found out that we had been 11 miles ahead of the front lines. So anyway, we got to the spot where we were supposed to set up, and there was it happened to be there's a golf course, and there was a building on it, the headquarters, I guess. It was unoccupied at the time, so we took it over. So we all set up in that particular building, and we had our trucks parked to the side of it, and then our radio equipment was camouflaged and away from where we were all sleeping and staying. And so we did not know at that time. Our job was to, again, just send messages and receive messages. We didn't know whether we were a decoy or whether we were sending messages back to headquarters. But okay, we just kept sending. And at that particular time, there was kind of a lull in the Allies advancing towards Germany. And primarily it was because they got ahead of their supplies, so they had to just kind of pause. And we were sitting there close to Liège, about 11 miles from Liège. And at the time, these buzz bombs that I mentioned earlier that were sent into London, England, they were sending them over they're launching them into Liège and also into Antwerp. And Antwerp was where all of our supplies were coming in from different countries, from England and the United States. Normally, a buzz bomb is just a pilotless plane, small, that has a 1-ton bomb in its nose, and it has fuel. They put the amount of fuel in it that they want it to fly. And while it's flying, it's very noisy, and it also shoots out a flame out to the tail end of it. And so they were launching them to Liège, which we were just 11 miles from. But every one of them went right over where we were staying. And the historians say there were 2,800 of them that were sent into Liège alone. So there were several every single day. When it was clear, you could always see them. And if it went overhead, you knew you were safe. It was going to land somewhere beyond you. If it was cloudy, you'd hear them, but you couldn't see them. If you heard it again overhead, you knew you were, and shut off, you knew you were safe. But one night, one shut off before it got overhead, and it landed just to the outside of the building that we were staying in. And it knocked all the windows out of the building, the whole building, knocked the doors off the hinges. Part of the ceiling came in, and I was sitting on like a cot, and it knocked me off the cot onto the floor, and part of the wall separated and fell on my back. But none of us, amazingly, were injured, other than bruises, and so that was a pretty scary moment in our lives. While we were there, the Battle of the Bulge started. And Liège was one of the cities that the Germans had on their list that they wanted to take first. And we were right in line with the advancing of the Germans. So we were told to go on radio silence, which we did, and we were told to just stay put. But they couldn't get any supplies to us or food to us or anything, so we ate some of the meals. We had some canned peas. We had to eat just peas for 3 meals, but most of the time we had sea rations. And but we were concerned because we knew the Germans were coming. We didn't know how close they were to us, and but fortunately, before they did come to us, Patton came down from the other direction, and he cut them off, and they had to change their direction. But otherwise, we would have probably been captured or killed, one or the other. The weather, though, was the main problem. It supposedly was the coldest winter they'd ever had. And there was about 10 days that it was just foggy, and we had over a foot of snow on the ground, and it was below zero. And we were trying to stay warm in this building without windows and doors. And but the airplanes couldn't fly because of the fog. And so we had a pretty rough 10 days there. And then finally it cleared, and that was the most beautiful sight to see all those airplanes. I bet we saw 1,000 airplanes in the sky at the same time. And from that point on, the weather we stayed at that location until the Battle of the Bulge actually was over. So we were there from September the 17th to January the 25th. And on January the 25th, I was transferred. We went back to headquarters. Now I was sent back out on detached service again, sometimes with the 9th Army, sometimes with the 7th Army, and sometimes with the 12th Army. But again, all I did was send messages and receive messages. I did not know whether I was a decoy or whether I was sending live messages to headquarters. Had no way of knowing. So we went up to Belgium into Holland, and then from Holland we we crossed the Rhine River, and again there was a decoys set up there. Whether I was one of those or not, I don't know. But we did cross the Rhine River into Germany. And then while I was in Aachen, Germany was one of the big cities that we went through. And after we'd got through the city, we had to wait. They hadn't been liberated at that particular time. And we were up high on a hill, and we could see the flashes from the ammunition, and see the lights of where the buildings were burning. But after it was liberated, we drove through it, and after we got to several miles away, we stopped, and there was a big building there, and I went into that building, and they were making Nazi flags. It was like on a loom, a belt, and all these flags. So I took my knife and cut off 3 of them, and I brought all 3 of them home. So I donated one to the Washington Museum, and I donated one to the Vincennes Museum, and I had kept one for myself. But anyway, we moved. At that time, the war was just about to be over as we were going towards Berlin. And we would see, we would take some prisoners, but we would see others that would begging us to take them because they wanted to be, they didn't want to fight anymore, and they wanted to go to PW camp. And but we'd take a few and let the rest of them just kept walking. And so we just kept going until we got to the Elbe River, which was Magdeburg was the name of the city that we were in. And we were told we had to stay at that particular point. And so I never got into Berlin, and then the war ended. And then like we were there about a week or two, and then we got orders to come back to the States. So they put us on boxcars on the train. It was just straw in the bottom of them, and we went by train from there to Le Havre, France, and then back to the United States. And then we had orders that 60 days after our furlough was up, we were headed for Japan. So that's what we thought was going to happen. And so my fiance and I were not married, and we had not planned to get married until the war ended. But after I'd been all through what I had, and then Japan looked like it was going to be in the future, we decided to go ahead and get married. And so within a week we were married, and then the war ended. I got discharged in October.
What was that like after going through Europe to think about the possibility, the very real possibility, that you were going to have to go to Japan?
Oh, that's all that we talked about. When it ended in Europe, I read one of my letters that I had written home, and I said, everybody now is wondering what's in store for us next. We didn't know whether we were going to have to go to Japan or whether we stay as occupational forces or whether we'd get discharged. And said that's all we could think about and talk about.
What about...
Most of us thought it would be Japan.
Okay, sir, just tell the camera, what are we looking at?
This is the Nazi flag that I picked up when I was in Germany. It was in a factory where they were making them, and I took my knife and cut 3 of them off and brought them home. Donated one to the local museum, one to the Vincennes, Indiana Museum, and kept the other one here myself.
Wow. And this is what you use for a blanket when you get cold?
No.
No, I'm joking. Yeah, I mean, so this has never been flown?
No.
What was it like to be in this, I mean, with all those Nazi flags all over, you know? It must have been weird to be in a place that was, I mean, those people were totally brainwashed.
Well, if you go through a town, if there's the people that were out on the street or something, if they saw you coming, they'd go right back in the doors, and then you see a lot of white flags hanging in the windows.
Yeah. Well, thank you for
like they were afraid of us.
Well, you guys are the good guys, so I don't know why. Super.